Liebe Zuschauer, ganz herzlich willkommen zum Nasdaq Report hier aus der Technologiebörse am New Yorker Times Square. Ich bin Manuel Koch und bei mir ist Gerald Celente. Er ist der Gründer und Chef des Trends Journal, das man im Handel hier in den USA erwerben kann und auch im Internet erwerben kann. Gerald, thank you so much for joining us today.
Thank you.
You are the founder of this magazine and you have some very specific thoughts, and you are talking about, for example, a bubble. So what's your opinion about the markets today?
Well, the markets are being held up by all of this cheap money being flooded into it. I mean, you look what's going on. Interest rates are near zero in America, and same thing with Europe. You know, the central banks kept the interest rates low. And so it's an interest rate recovery, and as long as interest rates stay low, the economies go up. It's as simple as that. But in the meantime, you're devaluing your currencies because this just can't go on forever. So let's look, for example, back here in the States. As soon as the 30-year mortgages went up, and they went up about 100 basis points, both refinancing of mortgages and new applications for mortgages dramatically dropped. When the interest rates started going down a little bit again, then new applications increased. So it's really predicated upon an interest rate recovery. It's not a production recovery. It's not an industrial production recovery.
You also talk about the mother of bubbles. So do you expect to crash, and when could this happen?
You know, I would have thought it would have crashed. Matter of fact, I had forecast it would have crashed back in 2010, 2011. I had no idea that the Federal Reserve was dumping in worldwide some $17 trillion. Who ever heard of quantitative easing? This is America. It's not capitalism anymore. 4 words have killed capitalism. Do you know what they are?
No, tell me please.
Too big to fail. In capitalism, no one's too big to fail. Oh, not anymore. So all of this money that's been generated, it's only going to the top. It's a fake recovery. At some point, the bubble has to burst, and the bubble will burst when real interest rates start going up and the bond market explodes.
So is this a program for the banks, the rich people, but not for the whole economy?
Again, that's a very good question, and to answer it in a totally unbiased way, just look at the facts. 1% of the population gained 95% of the wealth since the panic of '08 hit. Not making that number up. Here's another one for you. Median household income in America declined some $2,800 since the panic of '08 began. And now you're looking at the new data coming out. 1% of the population controls 20% of the wealth, and 10% of the population controls 50%. This is the widest gap that 10% having 50% in 100 years. So all the money's flowing to the top. 97% of the jobs created in this last year in the United States are part-time jobs.
But President Obama is always talking about this gap and to close this gap. There is nothing happening.
Well, look what they did it. I mean, under Larry Summers, they're the ones that created this whole stimulus program that enriched the rich. You know, so he's part of it. Talk is cheap in politics. Politicians will say anything. It's political jive talk. By their deeds you shall know them, and they've done nothing.
But what could President Obama, for example, do right now?
Oh, what you can do right now is start reining in all of this excess wealth that's going to the top. Look, under the years of Eisenhower, yeah, the rich were paying, you know, a real high tax rate. Yeah, guess what? In the last year, what did they show? 400 people, their wealth increased from $1.7 trillion to $2 trillion. That's bigger than the GDP of Italy. Yeah, how about taxing them really heavy? How about taxing the multinationals? And the multinationals are getting all the breaks. The numbers are there, the facts are there. They're getting a free ride, not only here. Why are they going to Ireland? You know, whether they like the pubs, You know, so they're going there, they're going around the world, all of the multinationals are all getting tax breaks, and who's suffering? Everybody else.
Let's talk about, let's get back to the stock market. So do you think it's a good time to invest right now, or would you personally be like very cautious, or what are you thinking?
I'm not really a stock market guy. You know, my two major investments are gold and real estate. That's what I buy. I'm not a good stock picker, but I would say, you know, when you look at the performance of the stock market and even the emerging markets, you know, they're bragging that the stock market is above 15,000. What was the stock market in 2007 in October at its height? 14,000. Accounting for inflation, it's not even back where it was back then. So it's, yeah, it's a good gamble, but where's it going to go? Is it going to hit the moon? Not with the economy the way it is.
Are you afraid that we see one all-time high after the other?
It's going to come down at some point, and I believe it's going to come down when the whole tapering mechanism really has to stop. Right now, it's just a temporary fix. There's no such thing as tapering. They just made this thing up. And so when the tapering really stops, this whole thing goes down. Look what it's done to the emerging markets. All that tapering money went over to all the hot markets, and now the money flows they're trying to stop them. Look what's going on in Indonesia, in India. They're raising interest rates at a time when the money is leaving, trying to protect their currencies as the economies are going down. It doesn't take a genius to figure it out. If you raise interest rates, when your economy is already slow, guess what? It's going to slow down more.
So when we will see a totally stop of the QE3 program, how much could the markets going down? 10%, 20, 50?
I think they could go down an easy 20%, easily.
So would you recommend to stop the whole QE program right now?
What should have happened when the panic of '08 hit? Let the bigs fail. And they haven't failed. They become too big. Bring America, you know, people ask me, what are the solutions? There are 4 of them. One is the Glass-Steagall Act that was put in place in 1933 to prevent what happened now. Put that back in place fully. Break up the banks. Break up the banks. When I was a young guy, there was no Wells Fargo. It was over there in California someplace. There was no interstate banking. They put these laws in place to protect the people. Banks weren't gambling in derivatives or collateralized debt obligations. Put the Glass-Steagall back and put all of the regulations back in place that made America an equal playing field. And that's the Robinson-Patman Act, the Sherman Antitrust Act, and the Clayton Antitrust Act. Put these acts back in place. Put the money back in the pockets of the people so that then we could have a middle class again. The gap between the rich and the poor in the United States is the widest of any of the industrialized nations.
But again, President Obama, I can't see that he is closing it. Are you disappointed?
No. I wrote about it in the Trends Journal. I knew who he was, and I knew who was backing him, and I knew it was all jive talk. I began my career at a graduate school running political campaigns in Westchester County, the richest county in the United States. I was the assistant to the Secretary of the New York State Senate at 23 years old.
For the Republicans or Democrats?
Oh, I was a young kid. I didn't care. All I wanted to do was a Republican. Makes no difference. I'm a political atheist. I don't believe in these political religions. So, no, I knew who Obama was the same as I knew who Bush was, I knew who Clinton was. It's a political racket. They'll say anything. Politics is show business for ugly people.
But, you know, so there are so many like lobbies and the banks and the financial institutes. Is there really a chance to change that? Could Republicans change that?
No, Republicans. It's this different side of the same, another aisle, but the same side. Look, every election, and you have it there in Germany, people vote for a lesser of two evils, right? They say, I'm voting for a lesser of two evils.
Maybe, yeah.
Would you have a relationship with a lesser of two evils? Would you do business with a lesser of two evils? Would you want a lesser of two evils over for dinner?
But if you don't have a chance, if you
don't want to be around them, the systems have to change. Look, There was a Renaissance before, and it followed after the Black Death, where over almost 70% of Europe was wiped out. The people realized they were doing something wrong. It's time for a renaissance and a rebirth, a new direction. And that's what we write about. The new course, the new direction. It's not working anymore. How much more failure has to pile up on new failures?
But you like to change the society.
I would like to see society raised to higher levels, of course. In dignity and respect, beauty, art. Look what they've done in the United States. There's no art classes or music classes hardly in any of the schools anymore. We need more math and science, I tell you. That's the stupidity. And again, what brought about the Renaissance? You know what I'll tell you we need? Not a great leader or a politician. We need some real de Medicis to put money back into the arts, because to me, art is the way of finding the true meaning of the human spirit, and you can't put a bottom line on it.
But when you go out there, the truth is totally different.
Again, a renaissance. The truth was different when people were dying and they realized we're doing something wrong. They used to say at the height of the Renaissance to describe the quality of their work, alla Romana e all'antica, in the manner of the Romans and the ancients. It's a time for a rebirth, a restoration. Look, Detroit just went bankrupt. There cannot be a better symbol in America for its decline. And you look what a great city that used to be, the construction, the architecture, and now look at it.
Gerald Celente, Trends Journal President and Founder. Thank you so much for your time. I appreciate it so much. Und Ihnen, liebe Zuschauer, vielen Dank fürs Zuschauen. Wenn Sie mehr über Gerald Celente wissen möchten, können Sie das auch im Internet tun unter trendsjournal.com. Und wir sehen uns in der kommenden Woche wieder hier aus der Technologiebörse am New Yorker Times Square. Bis dahin alles Gute und weitere Informationen auch auf www.drf.fm.